We have a Fox News alert. President Trump is speaking to reporters right now, saying Zelensky overplayed his hand and that Ukrainian president wants to fight, fight, fight. We will bring you that video when we have it. Meanwhile, the media had a field day today. Watch this.
Never in the history of modern diplomacy, war, peace, whatever, have I ever seen anything like
this. Was a tragedy. This doesn't make the American people better off tomorrow.
This is a catastrophe.
The president of the United States is a coward who is Vladimir Putin's puppet.
It seemed as though, Vladimir Putin's work was being done for him.
Trump become a lapdog for a brutal dictator in Moscow.
The propaganda is what's coming out of J.D. Vance's mouth, and it's Russian propaganda.
Which side of this war is Donald Trump on?
Putin and his cronies are probably popping champagne bottles right now.
So, Sandra, it's kind of odd considering what we've been through over the last couple of years, but given what we saw today, do you think it's the best strategy for Democrats to go back to the playbook of, oh, Trump is a Putin stooge?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to work. And the fact that the American public was able to see every bit of this happening in the Oval Office, they'll be able to decide for themselves. And so it behooved the press to cover this fairly and from all sides. Just looking at some of what we're hearing from President Trump as he is departing, and remember, we're going to hear from Zelensky a short time from now in that sit down with Brett. It sounds like Trump is making sure that his intentions are known. Some of what we are hearing is what you would expect. We are looking for peace, not a 10-year war. He says Zelensky wants to fight, fight, fight. I think that's what people saw him doing in the Oval Office. Trump says the U.S. is not looking to play games. Clearly, when you see that exchange with the President of the United States, he sat down for a deal. He did not come to play games. So the fact that this so publicly played out on the global stage, there are going to be strong opinions on what this means for world leaders to have seen this play out, but certainly for the American public to see this play out and then see the reaction from the media. What if this meeting had taken place and just simply a statement came out, or we learned that Zelensky got kicked out? You can only imagine the speculation, but people saw exactly what happened there and they can decide for themselves.
Yeah, I think the diplomatic words are frank. They had a frank discussion. That's all we would have gotten out of it. So, Jesse, one of the things that I love about this is that beforehand, Zelensky met with a bunch of members of Congress to prep for the meeting. What do you think those phone calls were like when he walked out of the meeting and he called those guys back and he's like, so how did I do?
He used to have to get prepped by Biden officials before getting on the phone with Joe, because he'd get on the phone with Joe and make endless demands and never say thank you. And it drove Joe crazy. And the same thing is happening here. I have a lot of respect for Zelensky. He's a brave guy. His people are brave. But he's got no leverage anymore. The only leverage he has are minerals, and he doesn't even know how to use that leverage. He'll never be a NATO member. It's not in our interest for him to be a NATO member. And the fact that he was arguing with the President of the United States and the Vice President in front of cameras in the Oval Office showed so much disrespect. And he's like a freshman out there when you think about it. He doesn't really know what's happening. This war just hit him in the face, and he's trying to survive. The things the Democrats are saying, Putin puppet, these things are just slogans. What is the Democrat strategy to win the war or end the war? They don't have one, because the Democrat strategy is to make this an endless proxy war that goes on forever, an unwinnable proxy war, World War I trench warfare style, where the Russians gain a half a mile a week and they just run out of ammunition. That's unsustainable. What is the national interest in fighting an unwinnable, endless proxy war, which is the Democrat strategy? No one's ever explained it. I can see the U.S. interest in ending the war. We get mineral rights. Energy and commodity prices go down. We could maybe add to our munitions, which have been spent over the last 3 years. You peel Russia away from China a little bit. I could go on and on. But sometimes, as you and all know, you have to break up to make up. And these things happen. Deals get blown up and they get cobbled back together. I'm sure next week they'll sign something.
Jesse has a point. I mean, what is the Democrat strategy for just ending the war?
Well,
You've heard from a lot more Democrats recently that they understand that there could be some concessions, that we're not going to get back to the pre-2014 lines. Even Zelensky has talked about him understanding that that might happen. And again, I'll repeat that he said, I will step down for being the leader of this country. His I think a 57% approval rating. People are pretty fond of him. We know that wartime presidents don't have elections. Just putting it out there. But he said, I'll do what I can to make a peace deal. But what they're signaling in this and what Zelensky is signaling with his attitude is something that the leader of the CDU won the German elections, Merz, who will become the next chancellor, was talking about, that Europe is on its own with Ukraine now, that they do not feel that they have a partner in the U.S. who's going to be protecting and supporting Ukraine or them going forward, and that Donald Trump has aligned himself more with Vladimir Putin than with the traditional Western world order, that the alliances in the post-World War II world are over, and that he likes Vladimir Putin better. I don't know. I understand you want to make a deal. And by the way, this deal doesn't seem like it had a lot for the Ukrainians. If what he wants is security.
Germany is Russia's biggest customer. All they do is buy energy from Russia. And they didn't give a lot of weaponry to the Ukrainians, not nearly as much as we did. The Germans sat this one out, same with the French. The British and the Americans did the heavy lifting.
As a percentage of GDP, we rank 17th in terms of how much we've given them. That
percentage, Shermanage,
no,
it's a lot of money.
Yes, of course.
We're richer. It doesn't matter, Jessica. We armed them to the teeth, and they did a hell of a job stopping the Russia war machine. But now it's time to end the war.
It is not just Democrats that are critical of this. Noted Democrat Karl Rove was on earlier talking about it. John Bolton, I get he doesn't like Trump anymore, but this guy is a traditional conservative person who's saying that this is a huge nightmare for the future.
Lindsey Graham said kick him out. Lindsey Graham, who we all know, never saw a war he didn't want to fight, said, Zelensky, get out of town, you screwed the pooch.
Or a war that he wanted somebody else to fight. No, but the problem here is that this idea that somehow Trump likes Putin more than Zelensky is absurd to me. The idea of this minerals deal hooks the United States deeply into the interests of Ukraine. Emily, in terms of the Democrat strategy for messaging this, are they winning? Are they losing?
Well, I personally think they are not winning. And that they never are. Look, I'll say this. At the end of the day, what we are looking at is peace through strength. Earlier in the meeting, President Trump said that he is continuing to send arms. But as he quoted, he said, but not too much more aid would be forthcoming. We're not looking forward to it. We're looking forward to getting the war finished so we can do other things. So respectfully as well to people like Christiane Amanpour, who says she's never seen anything like this. It's because she's never had the honor of being in the room behind closed doors without the press there when this is what diplomacy looks like, right? Taking out root canals and coming to agreements with different alignments and different values is not always pretty. And that's confirmed by Secretary Pompeo, who earlier on our network shared, look, he's seen this all the time. He's just never seen it before in front of the cameras. And for pundits who come on air and say they call President Trump a coward and a puppet, well, is that what Biden was then in October of 2022, who on his call with Zelensky, as the Wall Street Journal and CNN reported, yelled at him, told him he wasn't thanking him enough. He didn't feel gratitude. He was simply wanting to take more. Is that what they called Biden back then? At the end of the day, what we are seeing is a second-term president, President Trump, who is in the art of the deal negotiating what that looks like, which is not the World War II Axis allied nations. It's far more complicated than that, and it involves acquiescing in part to achieve mutually beneficial agreements. That means we don't simply ice out Russia and China because obviously that's not doable anymore. The embeddedness of all of these countries economically, intellectually, in so many property, in so many different ways, you cannot simply excise a tumor and think it's the end of the day. So in my opinion, for those in the Democrat Party who are crowing about what do they want, a long-term, an endless war? Do we want another Afghanistan? We left our blood and treasure there on the field. There are still French cranes in Iraq. So for me, this is the goal for peace. This is the objective and the end result to peace. And as President Trump said, I don't want an advantage. I want peace. And I wish the Democrat Party would listen to our commander-in-chief and know that this is what that looks like.
It is truly extraordinary to think about. Every single advancement Putin has made has been made under Democrat leadership. And now they're accusing Trump of being in bed with Putin.